What's up YouTube? This is Mohammad Badruddin back again with lab number 9 from web cache poisoning vulnerability module, and today we are going to see parameter cloaking. So before going further, this little disclaimer as always: this video and its content are only for educational and awareness purpose, and I do not support any unethical or illegal act. That's been said, let's see what this lab is all about. So as you can see, parameter cloaking. So the agenda of this lab is vulnerable to web cache poisoning because it excludes a certain parameter from the cache key. So because this is lab, so you have some conditions already predefined here, like the pickup point that the application excludes certain parameters from the cache key. Okay, and there is also inconsistent parameter parsing between the cache and the backend. So this is the condition where parameter cloaking comes into the picture, where you have inconsistent parameter parsing between the cache and the backend server. What happened? Suppose you are providing, or the application is providing, a series of parameters in the URL, but the cache only put some of the parameters, or among all of these, one of the parameter cache includes as the key, and rest of the parameters will be excluded by the cache. But what happened in some certain inconsistent parameter parsing conditions where cache excludes some parameter, but backend server, when the request reached to the backend server not exclude those parameters, and backend server respond according to that parameter values. So in that case, the parameter cloaking comes into the picture. The third line is: a user regularly visits the site's homepage using Chrome browser. So this is another pickup point. So it's using Chrome browser, so maybe we will be able to put some UTM parameters. Okay, I already described UTM parameters in the previous lab number 8. So I would say go to that lab, watch that, and understand UTM parameters, why they use, what are the UTM parameters, and what their purpose. So to solve the lab, use the parameter cloaking technique to poison the cache with a response that execute alert 1 in the victim's browser. Fantastic. So I already opened up the burp suite here. I'm going to enable the burp proxy on my browser and just refresh this page. Okay, so once we refresh back to the proxy HTTP history, and here we have this request. So with this request, there are few resources loaded with this request, like this geolocate.js. So this is JavaScript file or JavaScript resource that actually set the location or tells the location. Okay, so as you can see, there is a callback parameter, and its value is set country cookie, which is defined here. Okay, so set country cookie where country is equal to United Kingdom. Fine. So first thing I want to explain a bit how this inconsistent parameter parsing arises. So what happened? Some cache algorithm, suppose that there is a URL, let's say the URL is https://www.example.local or whatever, and then there is question mark. Okay, and the first parameter start with question mark in the query string. So let's say parameter 1 is equal to a and ampersand. The second parameter is parameter 2, and its value is b. Fine. So what happened whenever this URL sent for the request? So what happened? The application, if we see, first of all, let's see it in the cache point of view. So cache will see, okay, there are two parameters, but the key cache parameter is parameter 1. So the cache will exclude this second parameter. And how this process, how they identify parameter 1 with this question mark sign. So with this question mark, after this question mark, this is the first parameter, and m%, from m%, the second parameter starts. So what happened, maybe the cache will include this one, okay, as a cache key parameter, but exclude this parameter. But what happened, once this request goes directly to the web application server do not exclude any of these parameter, okay, and respond by combining these two parameter values. Fine. So that means once the request reach to the cache, it will say, okay, there are two parameter 1 and parameter 2. So parameter 1 is value is A and parameter 2 value is B. So cache algorithm only include this parameter and exclude the second parameter value. Now in some condition, what happened, special characters, those play some kind of role in URLs. Okay, so in this case, if the cache algorithm is flawed, so maybe the cache will see this as parameter 1 up to here, okay, and that will say this one is the parameter 2. But when this request reach to the web server, what web server will do? Cache will include only this and exclude this one. But once this request reach to the web server say, okay, this complete value is the parameter value. So in terms of web application server will consider only there is one parameter, which is parameter 1, and its value is completely this. So web application server won't be able to identify the second parameter, but cache identify parameter 1 and parameter 2 and only include parameter 1 as the keyed cache. Another scenario, according to some specific frameworks like Ruby on Rails. And what happened, what it will do, let's say copy this one and paste it here. Ruby actually use two delimiter. Ruby supports two delimiter signs or two delimiter special characters like ampersand and semicolon. Fine. So this can be also written like this. Fine. Or we can also write something like parameter 3 is equal to CCCC. Fine. So whenever the cache see this request, cache will say, okay, there are two parameters, parameter 1 which has value a, and there is parameter 2 and the parameter 2 value is this, because cache algorithm won't consider this semicolon as a delimiter. So it will not separate these two parameters. Okay, so in terms of cache, from cache point of view, there are only two parameters. But if the request reach directly to the server, in case suppose the cache expires and cache does not have the response for a specific request, so your request will directly go to the web server. Fine, your cache will directly go to the web server. But web server using a framework which is able to identify, or which is using this semicolon and ampersand sign for as a delimiter sign. So this one, let's say from the cache point of view, and this one, let's say from the web application point of view. So web application, what web application will do, web application will say, okay, there are actually three parameters. Fine. Because web application will see this is the first parameter, this is the second parameter, and this is the third parameter. So what if we identify that, okay, cache is only accepting this parameter and excluding rest of the parameters. So this is the keyed parameter, keyed cache, right? So what if we do like we put something like this? So we will say, okay, parameter 1 is equal to AAA, parameter 2 BBB, and again I put here parameter 1 and its value, let's say something malicious. Okay, so in this case what happened? In this case cache will do its job and it will only accept this parameter and rest of the parameters will be excluded. But when this request reach to the web application server, what web application server will do? Web application server will say, okay, there are 3 parameters, parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. Okay, but the third parameter is again the same parameter as parameter 1. So what happened? The web application server will not consider this. It will consider this parameter as parameter 1. So the preceding value or the preceding value will be considered and this will be denied or this will not considered, right? So it will say, okay, this is going to be something like this. You can consider it like this. So web application server will consider it like this and process the parameter 1 value which you provide here, malicious. Fine. So this is the concept, and here this is the technique where you play with the parameter by identifying that what parameters are included by the cache or what parameters are excluded by the cache. If the excluded parameter from the cache is acceptable by the web server or not, or web server is responding according to that excluded parameter which is excluded by the cache. So this is the concept here. So let's go and we will find more. We will work on it and you will understand this. First thing first, I'm going to right click on this geolocate.js because we find here this callback parameter. So I'm going to right click on this, go to the extension, go to the parameter miner, go to the parameter miner, and here you will see Rails parameter cloaking scan. Okay, so I'm going to scan it, just make it okay. Now send this request to the repeater, come to the repeater. Now what I'm going to see here, if I say, okay, instead of callback, I'm going to say callback 1 and let's change its value 111. Send this, and as you can see the parameter is missing and the parameter name is callback. That means we cannot change this, or to complete this request there must be a parameter named as callback. So okay, and if we see, once we send this request with the callback parameter, it is going to be cached in the cache and we get the response from the cache with this callback parameter. Now if I put here some other let's say parameter 2 is equal to 2, okay, and send the request, so you can see that we have 0, okay, and there is no difference in the response. There is no difference in the response. That means whatever you put here, okay, it is not going to make any difference. If you change 3, okay, the age is 0 because the response is not in the cache, but there is no difference in the response. So the response is coming because of that, right? But what happened, if you see the first request, when we change wait, here if we change this, so it's saying you must have the callback parameter. So callback parameter must be there, but the value could be anything. So let's try some random value and send it. Now you can see here this value gets changed, whatever the callback value we found here. And if we send, so you can see in every request we have this. Now if we put here some other parameter like parameter 2 is equal to 2 and send this request. You can see still we have AAA. There is no difference. There is no difference in that. If we change this value again, okay, so we have 0 here, but here we get change only in this parameter. So whatever changes we put in this callback value, we will find that. Okay, fine. That means this parameter is excluded by the cache and it's only having this parameter responsive. So go to the extender and go to the output. Here we can see we have callback is equal to set country cookie. Go scroll up and here we will see callback parameter has value set country cookie, and then the second parameter is UTM content is equal to X, and then again it's using callback function. It's using again using callback parameter, and it's using callback parameter with the semicolon sign, right? So that means let's go back to the repeater, and here instead of that let's go to first the genuine request. Okay, this is the genuine request. Now ampersand UTM underscore content is equal to anything, and let's add one more parameter here, which is going to be semicolon, and the parameter name is going to be same as parameter 1. Okay, to make deliberately the web application server to consider this parameter value, not the genuine parameter value. Oh, come on, what was that? Callback is equal to, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, now send this request. So if we send this request, you can see there is no change, but let's just keep sending. Now one interesting part here, if you see the color, from the color you will understand that UTM content up to here, this is considered as the second parameter, and this value considered as the value of the UTM content, but actually we try to put the third parameter here, which is callback. So if the request go directly to the web application server, and what I describe here, because web application server will have Ruby on Rails framework, so it will consider this ampersand sign as the delimiter, and it will consider this value as the third parameter. Fine. So back here, send it again. Okay, 30. Again, and as you can see, now this time here if we see the last request, you can see it's taking the callback parameter value as set country cookie, this one. But once the cache get expired and we send this request having this parameter, so it takes the callback function, it takes the callback value is 1 2 3 4 5 6, this callback value, not this callback value. That means the preceding similar parameter is going to be in effect, right? Now I think someone, as the lab said, a normal user or the victim user is periodically come and visit the home page, so that's why we get here now this. Once the cache gets expired after 35 seconds, instead of this callback value here, we will get this callback value in effect. So here, as you can see, now that means because this is the JS file, so we can directly put here alert 1 to solve the lab and send this value. Send this. Up to now it's not completed, so I'm going to keep sending this. 21, 23, once we feed our malicious response in the cache, and while that response in the cache, if user come to visit that, we will see that our lab will be solved. And as you can see, congratulations, lab is solved. He actually visited the site, okay, with our malicious response. So here we cannot see the alert, but the user see. Now if you refresh the page, you will see the alert. What? Wait a moment. Oh, we need to wait. Just wait, because our malicious response is expired from the cache. So we need to feed it again. 34, and now our malicious response is in the cache. So if we now visit this site, we should have the alert, and here we have the alert. So that's it for this video. Hope you like the content. So if you like the content, please like, subscribe and share, and I am going to see you in the next video. Bye.